And Theresa, I don't think I can get that in there, so go ahead, you can start, and I'll be happy to share in another way, maybe a little later in the presentation or at the end. Theresa, I believe you're on mute.
Always useful to know. Thank you guys so much. I wanted to welcome everyone, and I just wanted to say that we do have a couple of questions in the slides for you, which is where you're joining us from, and have you participated in an International Observe the Moon Night event? And if you have, how? I see a lot of remarks coming up in the chat. Also, if you're on Zoom with us, check to make sure you're replying to everyone, not just the host and panelists. Thanks.
This is always so fun to see where everyone is joining us from. So many people from so many places, and some new names and some familiar names. This is always great.
Welcome to everyone joining us on YouTube too.
Very good point. Welcome to everyone. I have Pennsylvania, Bangor, Maine, California, some from San Francisco.
Experienced host. Anyone else participate before, or do we have a lot of people new to the program? All right, fantastic. Welcome, welcome.
A few people have done it year after year, which is wonderful.
Yeah, that's marvelous, and it's also great to see new faces. So this is fantastic. A nice mix. And Theresa, I think I'm going to look to you to decide when we should proceed or how long we should keep hearing from everyone. So
I think since it's 6:03, I want to respect everybody's time, and let's just jump in and get started.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for coming and welcome. This is the 2023 International Observe the Moon Night event planning webinar. So my name is Andrea Jones, and I'm the director of International Observe the Moon Night, and I'm also the public engagement lead of the Solar System Exploration Division at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland, although I'm joining you from Afton, Virginia tonight, or my night, it's late here. And I'd like our other hosts to introduce themselves as well. So Theresa, would you like to say hello?
Hi, everyone. I'm Theresa Sommer from the Astronomical Society of the Pacific, and I am here to tell you about some of the resources we want to share with you for the Night Sky, from the Night Sky Network, and for your International Observe the Moon Night event. Caela, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, hello. Thanks so much for being here with us, everybody. I see some familiar names. It's good to see you all and good to meet some new folks. I'm Caela. I work in planetary science at NASA Goddard on Andrea's team, and I work on the website for International Observe the Moon Night. So I'll be sharing some of our new resources for this year.
Okay, take it away, Andrea.
And well, how about Sanlin as well? Sanlin, do you want to say hi?
I'll just say hi. I'll introduce myself. I'm Sanlin Buxner. I am the International Observe the Moon Night evaluator, and I will be rounding out our webinar today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So today, what you should expect is some information about the International Observe the Moon Night program. We're also going to highlight for you some resources from the Night Sky Network. And so this is an amazing partner of our program and of course the hosts of this webinar. And then we'll go through some of the details about other program resources with Caela. And then Sandlin will finish off by evaluating programs and how to do it and what we get out of it and why it's so important. So we will have time for questions at the end. If you have questions throughout the webinar, you're welcome to ask them in the chat, although hopefully we'll address some of them, especially for some new folks. And we also know that there are some experienced hosts out there, which is wonderful. And so if you have hosted International Observe the Moon Night events before and you have some tips, we would love for you to share them. Or if you have some advice about how not to do a terrible thing that you did by accident or it just didn't work out like you had intended, feel free to share that as well. We really deeply appreciate and admire the expertise that comes in the room with us as we're doing these webinars, and it's always fun to learn from one another. And so we'd like for you to learn from one another and to share with one another, and we always learn from you as well. So please feel free to make use of the chat. I also want to mention that we have 2 back-to-back slides in this webinar that have eclipse pictures, solar eclipse pictures. And we know that in some cultures, eclipses are sacred and not to be viewed. So I will let you know when those pictures are coming. And so if you choose not to look at them, that is fine. And I'm sorry, I've got a bug in my room. So we'll let you know when those slides are coming and when they're done so that you can return, looking at everything. But that's what we've got in store. So as we get started, Theresa, can you go to the next slide? And we have a poll for you. We want to know who is here. So please fill out the poll or put in the chat. Are you an amateur astronomer, a teacher, an informal educator, a space enthusiast? Oh my gosh, this is silly. A student, solar system ambassador, professional scientist, a park ranger, librarian, or someone else who's joining us, or perhaps you're many of those people all in one. So let us know.
The first people replying are a lot of amateur astronomers, but we have space enthusiasts as well and some informal educators. I think we will have a mix of people on YouTube. So Kat, if you are seeing anything in the comments on YouTube, please let us know. A couple of professional scientists and informal educators.
On YouTube, so far, we have an amateur astronomer and an eclipse ambassador, Julie Walker. Thank you for joining us, Julie.
Thank you. I'm gonna share the poll with all of you. There you can see we have a lot of amateur astronomers with us and teachers and educators. So thank you for joining us. And let's head to the next section.
All right, wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, this is great. There's a lot of different perspectives here with us, and that is wonderful. So we're excited to have you all and excited for the spin that you can put on this program. So for those of you who are maybe new to the program or could use a refresher, International Observe the Moon Night is a day each year that we invite everyone on Earth to observe the moon, to learn about the moon, and to celebrate the cultural and personal connections that we all have to the moon. So this is a day to catch up on what's been happening in lunar science and exploration. And it's a day to celebrate the moon in arts and culture, and to connect with lunar enthusiasts around the world. So people like you who are excited about the moon, who are all over our planet, this is a day to feel that connection across all kinds of borders and boundaries and oceans and things like that. So you participate in this program by hosting an event or participating in an event or observing the moon with your family or friends or on your own. So this can be done in person or virtually, or you can connect with people on social media. There's a lot of conversation, a lot of sharing of what you're doing and finding out what other people are doing through whatever social media platform that you are on. This program was inspired by 2 spacecraft successfully arriving at the moon, the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter and the Lunar Crater Observing and Sensing Satellite. So in 2009, they successfully made it to the moon. We had a big party at Goddard, a big party at Ames, and these celebrations were so successful that we wanted to do more of them, and we wanted more people to be able to join in, and so we got started. So today happens to be an especially amazing day to be talking about lunar science and exploration because humanity, India, just successfully landed Chandrayaan-3 on the south pole of the moon today. And there's just so much going on in lunar science, in exploration right now. You may have seen that the Artemis 3 geology team was just selected. We are going back to the moon with people, with commercial partners, with space agencies all over the world through Artemis. And International Observe the Moon Night provides an annual opportunity to find out what's going on in lunar science and exploration yourself, and also to share that with your community if you're very knowledgeable or if you just like to keep up sometimes. This is a time every year you can find out what's happening and share it and get people involved and excited about what we're doing with the moon. This program is also, again, connected to cultures and personal connections with the moon. And this is a great venue to do that. So many people have memories with the moon in it. And this is a place to start. So we launch from the moon and continue with, more observations of the moon, but also the skies and the world around us. So that's the program encapsulated. For the next one, we have our program goals. So here we have, so just the idea, and is everyone seeing the poll still in front of their screens, or is that, oh, I think that was just me. I just wanted to make sure. So program goals are detailed on our website, but here briefly, it's to unite people around the world in the lunar science and exploration celebration. We provide a platform to help with this. So we raise awareness of what NASA is doing. It's also an opportunity of finding out what's happening in other space agencies around the world. We want to empower people to learn more. So begin on this event, but then keep learning about the moon, about space science, with the Earth's moon as a familiar entry point. We want to facilitate sharing those moon-inspired stories, the images, the artwork. So what have you generated? What is out there? Let's share it and celebrate it together. And then continued observation, as I already mentioned. And we also, very important to us, is to support all people who are interested in learning more about the moon and connecting with it. So those are our program goals on our website. And then I will talk a little bit more briefly on some of the details, but I wanted to make sure you understood. For on the next slide, we have this event each year in the fall. It's in the Northern Hemisphere fall. So it's in September or October around a first quarter moon. So we choose this phase because it's a great phase for evening observing. So this is a good time to look at that line, that terminator, the line between day and night on the moon. And especially if you're looking through binoculars or a telescope, you can really see the rugged lunar terrain pop out. So this becomes a world you could imagine exploring, hiking on, walking around. I think it's really magical to look at the moon, especially with some aid, but even with the unaided eye, you can see a lot of really fantastic things if you take the time to go and look. So this the Saturday is chosen because that's a day that has worked for a lot of our event hosts in the past. And we also do our best to avoid major holidays tied to the lunar calendar. A lot of religious holidays are tied that way. So that's the reason for the date selection and why the program date changes every year. Next. Something I wanted to also share with you is that International Observe the Moon Night celebrations look different all around the world. And this is exactly as it should be. So we provide the structure and resources and tools to connect with and learn about the moon. But we want you to take this event and to make it your own based on the resources that you have available and your needs and interests and the needs and interests of your audience. So you might have an art-focused event or a science-focused event, or perhaps a blend of both. You get to determine the size and location and the agenda for your event. What do you have and where will it be? That's up to you. So over the program, we have some events that have thousands of people at them, and some observers, are out there on their own in their backyards. So, and anything in between is also wonderful and welcomed. So there's a lot of flexibility here. So it's also flexible because it's important to us that everyone everywhere who wants to participate is able to participate. So in addition to some other things I had already mentioned, the moon is the beginning of that accessibility. So even in a very, very light polluted sky, you can still see the moon, or many people can. And so it's kind of a nice place to begin by trying to open up the skies, the night sky and the daytime sky, to more people. We also encourage broad interpretation of the word observe. So you can see it with your eyes, but you can also feel it with your hands if you have a moon rock, or if you have a 3D print of the lunar surface. You can listen to moon songs or moon stories, or get involved in art or sculptures, anything that uses any senses. You can taste, moon cookies, or make them moon faces. So there's a lot of ways to engage lots of senses, and we encourage that. And we also have a date range. So Caela will tell you a little bit about that with regards to registration, but we have an official date. We recognize that not everyone can have an event on that date. So we have a date window so that more people can get involved. Next slide. I won't go deeply into the numbers here because Sandlin will do a little bit of that, but this program is a program that keeps growing. So last year we had our highest registration data, or highest registration ever. We had participation in all 50 US states. We had 125 countries. 10 of them were new. Since we began the program, we've had 160 countries participate. We had about 1 million people around the world participating in International Observe the Moon Night last year, both through programming that we offered and a NASA TV broadcast that we had, and also through social media. So this is an event that keeps growing, and we have lots of people talking about it, and it's kind of cool to look at these numbers, but it's also amazing that every single point on that map is somebody who's looking at the moon on that day with you if you're involved. And I think that is so cool to be united with all of these people looking up at the moon, not at exactly the same time, of course, because we can't all see it, but throughout the course of one day. I think that's so powerful, and that's something I love about this program every year. Next. All right, so here is our warning that the next 2 slides will be showing eclipse pictures. Please turn to the next one. All right, so something for this year, not for the whole world, but for most of the Americas, we have an annular solar eclipse that will cross the United States, Central America, and Northern South America 1 week before International Observe the Moon Night on October 14th. So this eclipse will be visible as a ring of fire if you're in the path of annularity, which is that dotted line, and partial if you're in one of those stripes surrounding that. So because of this, we have made a special product, if you could go to the next slide, that if people are inspired by the eclipse, they can continue observations with International Observe the Moon Night no matter what. Or if you are hosting an eclipse event, you could distribute a special eclipse edition moon observation journal to start your observations on October 14th and continue them through International Observe the Moon Night and beyond. We know that, eclipses inspire, observers around the world each year. And so we are going to try to do more with this. But this is just something special for this year. But we also are going to have our regular moon observation journal so that you don't have to use this one. And we also recognize that this is within the date window for International Observe the Moon Night. You could have it count as your event if you wish, or it's a time when you can say, hey, if you really enjoyed this, you can keep learning on your own with your family, with friends, because there's a lot of ways to participate from home. We don't expect you to have 2 different events back to back. All right, and with that, I'll go to the last part here before I turn it to Theresa. So something we often ask is, what's your favorite memory of the moon? We have asked this many times in many ways, but this year we're going to do it a little bit different. And we would like right now for all of you to just think on your own, think about your favorite memory of the moon. Favorite memory with the moon in it in some way. And then if you could go to the next slide, here we would like you to share what about this moment made it so memorable. So try to capture that in one word or in a very few words and share those words in the chat. And from here, I will turn it over to Theresa.
Thank you, Andrea. I wanted to mention that we are going to be thinking about this moon and like what made that event so special, because you're going to be having your own events, hopefully, as a result of this and your own inspiration from the moon. So we want to provide you with those resources, but we also want you to connect with your audience and think about what made that first or most memorable moon observing so cool. What was that thing? Was it the first time you looked through the telescope at the moon? Was it that you were with your family? Was it that you had some hands-on activities? I also want to check in with Kat and the YouTube people who are there. If you want to put that in the comments, you can do that. And I invite Vivian is a colleague of mine. She's going to be sharing her screen as they're coming in. Oh, that is really cool. A lot of people are just loved looking at the moon. Some people had binoculars. Some people remembered the blood moon or a lunar eclipse. Of course, Neil Armstrong and the lunar landing and how the moon looked. That's great. Thank you. I love hearing about people's moon memories and what attracted them to this, our celestial neighbor.
Feel free to keep adding and we'll show this again at the end if you'd like.
Thanks. So, as I mentioned, some people might remember their first time looking through a telescope or the things that you did with someone. Maybe you went to your library and got to make something with clay. So I'm going to tell you about both of these things, both how you can connect with an astronomer, or if you are an astronomer, there's some events and activities and resources that you can share at your event that you're planning. First thing I want to talk about was in 2004, actually next year will be the Night Sky Network's 20th anniversary. And that what happened was NASA and the ASP launched the Night Sky Network to support amateur astronomy clubs across the country. I know the amateurs were already and continue to do great public engagement, but with the network, we could support that outreach with lots of NASA science content and outreach materials that are uniquely tailored to the needs of amateurs in reaching their community. And so our motto was making NASA scientists science real. And what is the Night Sky Network? Well, there's more than 400. Actually, we're around over 400. I'm not sure if we're at 450 yet, but clubs all across the country are in the network. And you can see that anywhere there's people, there's a club. And looking at the sky, of course, is a universal passion, but we are, the Night Sky Network is focused on the United States. And so that's our image you're seeing here. But Caela is going to talk about Astronomers Without Borders, and there are astronomy clubs everywhere. So I want to encourage you to use these resources as well. So a couple of questions you might be thinking about: how do I connect with the Night Sky Network, or with an astronomy club, or with an astronomer? Astronomy clubs are just groups of amateur astronomers, and amateur astronomers are people who love the night sky and want to share it with others. So this is the Night Sky Network image of the Night Sky Network webpage, and I just want to show you how you can connect with astronomers near you. So up top, you can see that there's an arrow pointing to the clubs and events. You just click on that and then put in your zip code. And when you do that, you will find a lot of clubs and events that are in your region or within 50 miles of you that you can go and explore and connect with someone. Going to an event or a club meeting is a great way to make your acquaintance with an astronomer who can come to your school, your library, your park, or you can join the club too. It's a really fun thing to do, although I am very biased. Okay, so if you are interested in finding resources and activities, I saw we have a lot of amateurs on the call, which we appreciate. If you go to the Outreach Resources tab, you're going to find all kinds of fun activities that you can add to your event. I'm going to share a few of them, but there's a lot more. So just going to jump into it. A few of you mentioned in the chat about the moon map, and we're going to talk about the special one that the International Observe the Moon Night does every year. It's really great because it has like a lot of observations that you can see that night. We have lunar maps that you could access throughout the year and have some features on the side of the moon that is looking towards the Earth. We also have a collection of lunar phase cards that are for the first, say, 11 days of the lunar cycle. So you get to see the different features you could see during the different times. And so I want to encourage you to look at those. All of these resources that I'm sharing are free and printable from that Outreach Resources area. We also have a section that is about the legends that people have told about the moon. These lunar legend cards are called Toad in the Moon because Toad in the Moon was a story told from China, and you can see different people seeing different shapes in the moon. But one of the really wonderful things about sharing different culture stories is that we also have an extension to that activity where your visitors can share their own activity. I mean, their own story. This one is like, once upon a time, a painter was painting a farmer's fence. Then the farmer said, let's have a seesaw battle. So the painter did. And when they did, the painter accidentally brought the paint. And the farmer made the painter go high into space, and the painter spilled the paint. And so there's lots of like really fun things that can come up with your visitors when they can share their own stories. Also want to say that there's sometimes some tricky questions you get when you're engaging with the public. So if you have any questions about that, there's lots of resources about the flag on the moon and why we have, why we went to the moon, how we went to the moon, all of those really essential resources for people. So I just wanted to include the QR code, the bit.ly, if people are interested in that. You can, if you don't have time to do downloads, we also do sell them at cost at the Astronomical Society. And we're a nonprofit, so we don't charge anything for them. We do charge the cost, but we don't add anything additional. So if you have questions or comments about these links or activities, share them in the chat, please. I also want to mention that we want you to encourage you to connect with the events and people that are in your community already. So there's a lot of times there's local events that are already going on, and you might not think, oh, I'm going to connect this with the moon, but Sometimes there's football games or downtown Saturday night events like art walks, or a planetarium show might be doing something. Someone has shared the International Observe the Moon night when their local planetarium was showing the laserium dark side of the moon. So there's all kinds of events that you can see in your community and join with them. Another great thing that you can do is connect with your local library. Those local connections in parks and schools are people that really are excited to share the moon also. And so you can make a big difference by connecting with them. Couple of quick things that I wanted to share with you, just some photos of some events. This is a daytime moon event. And if you look over to the right of the image, you can see there's a baseball field. And this was before the town baseball game that everybody showed up to, and they had a lunar event for that. So just a really fun thing. And then this one I just love, because we have so much light pollution in our world that sometimes we can do some things that are a little unexpected. So this event had people walking on the moon, and it was too bright in this carnival atmosphere to see the features of the moon in the sky very well. So they projected it on the ground, and that made everybody at the carnival into an astronaut. So I just want to encourage you to think about connecting with your local partners. And Caela's going to talk more about partners and also how you can register your events to be part of that map that Andrea showed that had all the little dots. You could be one of those little dots for next year and this year.
Yes, thanks, Theresa. That's all really exciting. I love the story about the folks projecting the moon on the ground as a way to enable observation, even when maybe the original plan was foiled. A question we get all the time is, well, what if it's cloudy or, right? And you'll see us sharing resources through our newsletter and our website and on social from now through the event, highlighting all kinds of ideas. I'm sure we have tons of good ideas and experience in response to that question in this room too. But what a great story. Thanks, Theresa. We are going to shift gears into some more resources that are available on moon.nasa.gov, including more ways to find a partner, how you can register, and also some other things. Let's go. So clearly, if you are looking for other observers to partner with, you are already in a really good place. Thank you, NSN, for having us. Thank you, NSN, for doing what you do. Quick shout out too. I know we have Kat on the line, and Viv, and Brian was here earlier, making all the tech happen. Thank you, Night Sky Network. So you're in a great place with a lot of resources already. We have even more links for you on our Find a Partner page, and I'll have some QR code going directly to this page in just a few minutes. This is also where you will find information about Astronomers Without Borders, about solar system ambassadors, and other networks of people who want to connect with you and support your observing efforts. Okay, next, as promised, registration. This is an exciting one and an important one. This is how you can officially become a part of International Observe the Moon Night and put yourself on the global map. Our main program date this year is October 21st, but as Andrea alluded to earlier, our system is set up to accept observations and events that are scheduled within about a week before and after that date. We want you to be a part of this community. We want you to be a part of this program, even if October 21st itself doesn't work for you. There are so many ways in which the program really comes to life on the ground at the local level, and we've been hearing a little bit about some of those. The way that plays out in our registration system is you can add a public event to our searchable database. If you're having a private event and you don't want people to know your contact information and come and show up at your doorstep, but you still want to be on the map, we got you. We would love to have you register your event privately. And that, even if you're just observing with your household, that totally counts. And we'd love to have you register. If you're observing on your own, there's a pathway for that registration as well. I'm going to focus for the next few minutes on resources that are mostly geared towards hosting public and private events. And some of these resources are classics like our How to Host an Event Guide and our sample event outline. So particularly if you are thinking about putting on an International Observe the Moon Night event for the first time, these are really designed for you. We want to back you up. We want to make it easy and demystify and share all the good ideas that other people have had and shared over the years. So you'll find a whole section of the website dedicated to those kinds of resources. Next slide, please. Thanks. You will also find all kinds of shareable graphics like our Save the Date card, which you see here, or which is included on this slide. We do have a template press release. I know this is something that you, our community, have told us that you want to have, and this is something that we offer. You can find it under our multimedia resources if you would like to make a formal announcement about your event, but you're not quite sure where to start. We also have more informal resources like a fillable event flyer and stuff that's just really designed for social. So check out the multimedia page if that's what you're looking for. Next slide, please. All right, moon maps. So we love your evaluation data. We love your feedback. You're going to hear more about that from Sandlin. Every year, we hear from you that the moon map is the most used resource. So we always want to be paying attention to that and making sure that this is available and that we're doing our best to level it up. And actually, I believe there's someone on this call who provided some really helpful feedback about this year's moon map about 2 days ago. Dan Durkin, if that was you, thanks. And if not, you share a name with someone who provided some really helpful feedback. We talked about it in our moon.nasa.gov meeting yesterday, and we're working on it. And I haven't gotten around to sending you an email yet, but we get to talk about it now. That's cool. So we want you to be using these resources. We want to hear from you if there are issues that you find, if there's stuff that's not working for you. We love to keep iterating and keep trying to make these resources better. You will find a traditional PDF copy of the moon map on this year's moon map page. You'll also find an interactive browser-based version, which is we've had last year. It is a relatively new development. And this year, we actually have a brand new interactive map feature. Next slide, please. This map is available not only for International Observe the Moon Night, but for every night of the year. So in the spirit of the NSN moon map, that is for all the time, not just International Observe the Moon Night. This is here for you if you want to check out what the moon phase will be on your birthday or on a night when you know you'll be out observing. Whether you are observing in real life or you want to explore online, there's lots of content to dive into here. Recommended sites for observing with the unaided eye, with binoculars, telescope, lots of LRO imagery and descriptions. So it's meant to be a guide for observing the moon in real life. And it's also a fun tool to explore just virtually. Again, as you use this tool and test it out, we would love to hear from you about how it's working for you and get your feedback. Okay, so although the moon maps are our most widely used resource, they are far from our only content resource. We have been publishing some new evergreen science content in the last year. We're really excited about it. We've been working closely with lunar scientists in NASA Goddard's Planetary Science Division and colleagues all over the country to deliver the best information we can about questions like, how did the moon form? What is it made of? When we think about weather on the moon, a world with no atmosphere, essentially a really tenuous exosphere, what does that even mean? So if you've explored moon.nasa.gov before, you might find some new stuff this year, and we hope it'll be useful to you and that you'll let us know how it's working for you. One resource that we're really looking forward to sharing this year, and that you can already try if you'd like to, you'll find it on our activities page where we post a short curated list of hands-on tools for each year is the citizen science project MoonDiff. MoonDiff just rolled out, oh gosh, a couple of weeks ago now. It's new news. It is a citizen science project that's focused on lunar science. That's something we haven't been able to offer before. And in the MoonDiff Citizen Science Project, what you can do is you can help us compare images from the lunar orbiter captured in the 1960s with images from the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter captured in the last 13 years. Now, some of these comparisons can be done automatically, but some of the comparisons we still need human brain power to make. And if this is something you're interested in, if you are curious about citizen science, if you want to give it a shot, you'll find more information on our activities page, along with hands-on stuff and other ideas about ways to observe the moon creatively this year. All right, next slide, please. And this will be my last one. I hope you've taken away from the last few minutes that there's a lot out there on the website for you. It is curated and tuned in response to the feedback you've already provided, and we really, really appreciate that input. Follow the QR code, it'll land you right on our How to Connect page, and you'll see links to everything else in the nav bar. You can find official partners, organizational partners. Our Find an Event database is also a great way to discover who is observing near you. So if you want to know what's going on in your community, even if you're already hosting events, that's a place you may wish to look to see who else is doing similar things and perhaps get in touch with them. Our newsletter comes out not very often through most of the year. We pick up a little bit around International Observe the Moon Night. Right now we're hitting about 8 issues a year on average. We're all over social, NASA Moon, #Observe the Moon is the way to join. We will have a collaborative global Flickr gallery again this year. And we would love to see how you are observing the moon. If you want to share photos from your event, artwork, any of your observing images. We will have a NASA TV broadcast on October 21st, which will be something that you can pull from in an event if you're hosting an event. And we will have a Night Sky Network webinar focused on lunar science updates featuring Dr. Erwan Mazarico from NASA Goddard. The topic will be lunar lighting conditions at the South Pole. That's going to be September 19th. You don't have to remember that right now. Details are coming, pre-registration is coming. We hope you'll join if you are interested and available. And of course, that will be recorded too. For other lunar science updates, moon.nasa.gov is the place to look. And with that, I will wrap up and hand it over to Samlyn. Thanks.
Wonderful. Well, as I said, I am the International Observe the Moon Night Evaluator. I work down in Tucson. I live down in Tucson at the Planetary Science Institute, but I have the great privilege of helping tell the story and support other people tell the story of their International Observe the Moon Night events. And I think the first message that I want to start with is that this program values all feedback. The things that are positive, the things that we can work on, it is all really valuable and taken to heart by the entire coordinating committee. And so all feedback is important to us. And we'll talk a little bit about the 2 ways that we're directly getting feedback and some other ways that you can get feedback and still feed it back to us. And so we are getting data, evidence, all of this from event hosts such as yourself, as well as what we are calling individual lunar observers, which is everyone on Earth who is looking up at the moon. And as Caela has continually said, that data is used to make changes every single year. And really those changes are to support the community, all of us, all of you that are hosting and doing events. Next slide, please. Just to give you a couple examples, visually, the feedback has led, as Caela said, like the observing guide is so important, and that's something that's really important to get out early, do really well, so that we have a great guide for everyone who is hosting or observing on their own. Other things that we have heard is we wanted people who wanted press releases that were adaptable to their own circumstances that they could use. We have kept the NASA webinar. People have said they love the NASA webinar for use again in their events as well as at home. All the things that are getting innovated are really about your feedback, about people's feedback from all over the world. And so we're just want to iterate, keep it coming. Tell us. We're really excited to keep innovating and really keeping this program relevant to everyone every year. Next slide, please. One of the things we like to do is support hosts to do their own evaluation. And so when we say that, you can use our embedded evaluation, but we also want to support people who might want to dip their toe in. And on the guide, in event resources, in the same place that you're going to find resources about how might I host an event, we have a how might I evaluate my event. And so here's just a couple really simple steps, things that we think about, but we've kind of codified it for you to think about. And so you want to know what the goals of, right? What is it you want to know, or the story? Do you want to know if this is people's first time at your institution or your star party or at your event? Do you want to know if they enjoyed looking at the moon or if they want to do other things? Do you want to know if they want you to come to their school? You have to decide, what is it you want to know? Maybe you want to count how many people came in the door so you can really go to a funding agency. The second is really thinking about how you're going to collect that data. Right? Data doesn't collect itself. So you may have a QR code in the dark on a wall, but that's not really going to help you. So you really want to think about, how is that data going to get collected from individuals who are wandering through? You may not have any contact info for them. And so you might want to designate someone who's really going to be dedicated to that. And then the third is ask the things you really want to know about, right? So don't just ask our survey if you're not really interested. Really think, are we excited to know if people had fun? Ask that. Are we excited if people will come back? Ask that. And so you really want to just say, what do we want to know? And then what are we going to do with it? An evaluation can look anything from a formal survey to a sticker board where you're having people just put their little smiley faces next to things they really liked. Maybe you want to know what activities they like the most. You could also just have a wall where they're writing things. It can take many forms. And I encourage you to reach out to me and our team, our evaluation team, would be happy to help support you in your own evaluation. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we're doing. So next slide, please. We like to use all the feedback. So we're using registration data, host data, and of course, the individual observer lunar database to help us really understand the global impact. And so like Andrea said, right, we're taking a look and saying, well, what does it look like in the numbers? So in the center, you can see this map that's colored in. It's a country, every country that participated last year, which happened to be 125. We also like to count new countries. We're very excited about the expansion. We're talking about states and territories, events and individuals. And then of course, how many people engaged in this throughout the year. The reason I say that is your registration is essential for helping us understand that. So when you register your events, that goes in to how we are starting to track things. On the left, you're starting to see some data about our individual lunar observers. And so we have questions like learning about lunar science and exploration, right? People are really excited that they really want to keep doing it. They have an interest in learning more. And so we know that individuals who are coming to your events are super engaged. And we also are able to collect some insights and testimonials for them as well. Next slide, please. We want to show you the host survey. We hope that you will fill it out. We've made it really short. So for those of you who have filled it out in the past and it was long, it's a single page this year. We want you to fill it out. It's just going to be telling us what'd you do, how many people showed up, and what else can we do to really support you? So we really encourage you. Here is the link. It's already ready to go. So if you're having events early, but we will have an email sent out after the event to kind of remind you to just tell us about your event, tell us about your successes, and then tell us what else we can do to support you. In addition, next slide, please. We have the Lunar Observer Survey. And so this is the survey that can be filled out by anyone all over the world. This is the active QR code for this. We will be putting it everywhere on the website, broadcasts, but we encourage you, especially if you are having virtual events or you're having events where people can just click with their phone to just tell us about their experience, about how they're observing the the moon. This will be ready, and that all gets fed into our larger picture that we are feeding back to tell you again how successful we are globally and what we can do to continue to improve. And with that, I'm all done.
Thanks so much, Sandlin. I really appreciate hearing all of that, because we really also want you to share your data with us. At Night Sky Network, we have a post-webinar survey every time. It's only 4 questions. And so we really want you to go and check that out, take the survey. We also really are excited to hear about your events. So not only can Sam quantify them, but also we just love to know what you are up to. So I'm going to put that link in the chat, and Kat can do that for the folks on YouTube. Just
Oh, I went ahead and I posted it to the chat.
fantastic.
And since we are on a Night Sky Network hosted webinar, Vivian posted in the chat, but just so you know, Vivian, do you want to make an announcement?
Thank you so much. I just wanted to let there's a lot going on over here. I want to let folks know that for Night Sky Network clubs, usually what we've done in the past, and we'll do it again this year, is to take any of your public events that are posted on the Night Sky Network calendar between October 13th and 22nd, all around that month, that week, because we know that they don't always occur on exactly that night. But if they have the word moon in them and they're public and available to anyone to come to, we'll make sure to cross-post it to the International Observe the Moon Night Participate calendar as well. So yeah, you won't have to post it twice.
Yeah, thank you. It's really wonderful. We really appreciate the time and energy it takes to put things places, and so we're happy to help facilitate sharing between our groups, because we're just interested in people getting out there and observing and helping others observe. So it's really wonderful. Thank you. So now is the questions time, or the additional sharing time. If anyone has something they'd like to talk about from a previous event that you're like, hey, everyone should know about this. This was fabulous. Or, hey, I had this problem at an event and I'd like to know how to fix it. Or I anticipate this problem and I'd like to know if someone here can help me, or anything you are not sure of, not clear of from what we covered, or perhaps something we didn't cover. That this is a very big program, and we did, especially I talked a little bit quickly, sorry about that, to put a lot of content in. We did not cover everything, so we're happy to find out what else you'd like to know. So please let us help each other out for the remaining time.
I'm super curious about what this group's favorite rain or shine observing activities are. We must have some pretty cool ideas in this room right now.
Have you ever seen, okay, while people are putting that in the chat, I will share maybe my favorite. Have you ever seen the daytime moon hack? This was put on, I think the Astronomical League posted this somewhere, and I'll have to find it. But if you take a bottle cap, just a plastic bottle cap, I think the metal ones might be hard on your eye, and drill a hole in it, then you can hold it up to the moon, and it actually, the daytime moon, it will block a little bit of that light and make it easier to see some of the features of the moon. It's just an easy trick that's kind of fun to try out. So I encourage you to try that. It's one of my favorites.
Yes, that is awesome. And I see a question here. Yes, we are having a NASA TV broadcast on October 21st. So we'll be posting the link to that on moon.nasa.gov/observe. We're still working with NASA headquarters to determine the time of that broadcast. I anticipate it will be somewhere around 8 p.m. Eastern, but that is still to be determined. It'll be 1 hour long, and then it will be available as a recording. So if you're in a different time zone where you'd like to watch it, or a different day, or just fun Friday movie night, the next week, it'll be there. So International Observe the Moon Night NASA TV broadcast will have new content, more resources, and hopefully this year again we'll do some stories from around the world. I love seeing how people observe the moon. That was my favorite part of the broadcast last year. So we always do something a little bit different though, so it should be fun.
There was a question from YouTube about, oh, yeah, sorry, that was the, that was the same one.
Did I see right on YouTube that that question came from Alison McGraw, perhaps the same Alison McGraw who really spearheaded a lot of the movement to include art more formally in International Observe the Moon Night? Thank you, Alison.
absolutely
You're a
was,
rock
yes.
star. We appreciate you.
Okay, Michael did ask a question, says our club usually runs looping videos in our meeting hall during our public events. Are lunar videos available from Night Sky Network?
I don't know about that, but we have many available through the NASA Scientific Visualization Studio. So if we have links to these through moon.nasa.gov/observe. So we have a curated list, but if you go to my favorite NASA website of them all is sbs.gsfc.nasa.gov, and it is everything you ever wanted to learn about NASA science and exploration in one slightly difficult to search, but it's there format, and we are moving it over to the new consolidated NASA website. This is coming soon. Science.nasa.gov has already started, but everything's moving there, and it's just magical. It's wonderful, and lots of things to loop. Clair de Lune is my personal favorite. It's just moonlight set to, you know, Clair de Lune, if you'd like to see this, from Ernie Wright. There's also, you know, spoken word ones. There's what's happening. There's all kinds of different tones, like what the heck is that is a pretty popular one. And there's also, you know, very, you know, important press releases and media coverage of important things. So lots of different options on there. I don't know if the Night Sky Network has additional resources, but definitely had to shout out for the SBS.
Oh, and I hope somebody's got the link to that somewhere you can put in the chat, because
I'll post it right now.
Thank you. There's also, I'm going to throw in the chat, we have a fun article on weird ways to observe the moon, and that little hack with the bottle cap is on there, I believe. Yeah.
I also noticed that in the chat, Chris White mentioned that creating impact craters is always fun. Someone earlier mentioned that you should definitely put a tarp underneath your setup, and then followed by looking at actual meteorites, because that is definitely different than using metal marbles and such. That's a really fun activity for a stormy or cloudy night.
Love it, Chris. Thanks, Chris.
I also want to encourage anyone who has hosted an event before, now's the time to share in the chat, like what was exciting about it for you, to help all of the newer folks also get excited about it, or things that you would like to warn them to stay away from. We do get that some people are having a hard time copying the chat, so we are working on that now. Just wanted to let you know that we see that.
Yeah, and Chris, I love the idea of following an impact crater activity with meteorites. There's also lunar samples that you can borrow if you're an educator. So you can bring samples of the moon to your event if you are at a school or an educational institution. I'll also add that if you are not able to do that, another great pairing is water balloons. So something that I love doing is doing activities that show different aspects of models. So models, of course, are just showing one part of a very complicated system, and with, you know, the flour and maybe the kitty litter and the cocoa powder, or however you do it, there's a lot of different ways that's showing you the morphology of the crater, the shape of the crater, but it doesn't destroy the impactor. And something that happens if you throw water balloons at the ground, you destroy the impactor, and the impactor, then the wetted area, is about the same ratio as a real impactor is to the crater it makes. So when you throw it in the flour, the crater is the size of the thing that hit it about, and the water balloon shows you the destruction of the thing that hit, and also a better size ratio of impactor to crater. So putting them together, you have different aspects of impact craters, and you get to play with water balloons and cocoa powder. And really, My favorite place this was done, we did a workshop in Fairbanks, and they did this in the winter, and they didn't just do it with wetted perimeters like water. They had ice, like they made ice craters all over, which was so cool. So anyway, you can take it and spin it a lot of different ways, but I think combining different models is really fun.
I don't know if you mentioned this, but if you use some powdered chalk in the balloon, it really makes the like ejecta patterns really stand out. And so I actually have a video on YouTube about that, so I'll see if I can find it. But
I gotta
it's a
try
really
that.
fun.
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
That is awesome. That is so fun. Yeah, I have to try that too. Watch out, driveway.
We get a lot of strange looks from our neighbors here at ASP. I am noticing it's 7 o'clock here and it's 10 on the East Coast. So I really want to thank everyone for attending and joining us. Please, please, please let us know what you thought about the webinar and if we can improve anything. We are going to be putting the chat on with the YouTube video. Is that correct, Vivian? So you are welcome to check that out, and we'll figure out what's going on with the chat that you can't save it. But
Well,
any
yes,
last
thank
thoughts?
you, everyone. Thank you, Night Sky Network, for hosting us. And if you have questions or ideas later, you can contact us through the website. So we are listening. We're always happy to hear from you. But we really appreciate all of your interest and your time. And we hope that you and your community go out there and observe the moon. And then we want to hear all about it. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Or good afternoon, or wherever you are. We appreciate you spending your